what's trending on CBS Sports HQ, and we are getting a look at college football's best and brightest at the halfway point of this season. Our panel of college football experts just releasing the 2023 CBS Sports Midseason All-America team. Only 3 players received unanimous vote honors, and you're taking a look at one of them, those being Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr., having himself a huge Heisman moment with that win over Oregon, the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman at this point. In total, 22 programs represented across 27 selections. You're getting a look at the offensive selections, of course, Michael Penix Jr. there. Him, Brock Bowers, and Luther Burden, those were the unanimous votes. Bowers returns from the preseason first team, and so does a trio of offensive linemen, including Joe Alt out of Notre Dame, Olu Fashanu from Penn State, and Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State. When it comes to the defense, the Crimson Tide surfaced the most. When it comes to the selections, 2 of their selections are on defense, including Kool-Aid McKinstry and Dallas Turner. McKinstry and Georgia D-back Malachi Starks, both on the preseason first team as well. And then we have UCLA senior Latu on the list for defense also. We have the dynamic duo, Chip Patterson and Ryan Wilson. We're going to talk about the college team perspective here and then also the draft perspective when it comes to some of these guys making the team. When it comes to the unanimous votes club, only 3 players are in that very selective club, and Washington QB Michael Penix Jr. is on there as well. He's also the favorite to win the Heisman at this point, but not on the preseason All-America team, Chip. So just how remarkable is that, what we've seen from him so far at this halfway point of the season?
Yeah, he was already going to give Caleb Williams a run for his money, but everything that happened on Saturday, both first Penix taking down Oregon in epic fashion with those last 2 throws to beat the Ducks, and then Caleb Williams throwing 3 interceptions and really looking out of sorts against Notre Dame's defense. So it was on the Heisman odds board. It was on the All-American team. That is how you take over the QB1 when we thought the QB1 position was locked in stone for basically the entire year. The thing that stands out to me about Penix is he is the best deep ball passer in college football right now. He does have the advantage of having 3 NFL-bound wide receivers within that offense, but the fact that he has been able to be so prolific and so consistent and now be able to add that big win to his resume, it's going to be really, really tough to replace the lefty given what he's been able to do already so far for the Huskies.
And Ryan, with the way that Penix is playing, you know, you do mock draft after mock draft and look at fits, all the teams. What comes to mind? What team would select Michael Penix Jr. and be a good fit for him, in your opinion, at this point?
Jacqueline, I give Chip a huge shout out. He's basically doing the draft coverage. He broke down why Penix is so good, the players around him that makes him so good, those wide receivers that have been balling out for the Huskies for sure. And here's the thing. I was talking to a team last week before this Oregon-Washington game, and they were like, look, man, Michael Penix is a first-round pick. And that hasn't necessarily been the talking point up to this point. And Chip talked about how well he's done this season. And again, I'm just reiterating Chip's words here. He is the best deep ball thrower in college football. Now, you might say, he had the 2 ACLs. He had the 2 shoulder concerns. That was back in Indiana. He's been relatively healthy throughout his tenure in Washington, and we saw this on Saturday. He is incredibly tough. He will get popped in the mouth, hop right back up, and then make a play. In terms of how this translates to the NFL, he's NFL ready. He has a ton of experience, and it feels like he could end up being a top 20-ish type pick because we know, Jacqueline, that teams are in desperate need of quarterbacks. They determine the direction that a franchise will go for the next 5 to 10 years. And is he going to go top 10? Probably not, but there will be teams in the middle of that draft, teams that maybe want to move down. The New England Patriots feel like a great fit, even though they may be picking pretty high, but just outside of the Drake May conversation, that might be in the mix for a quarterback. There will be a ton of teams looking for quarterbacks, whether to replace young guys that haven't worked out or perhaps to replace older players who haven't worked out as well. The Saints come to mind with Derek Carr. So there's going to be a long list of quarterbacks to watch in this draft and a long list of teams interested in finding those quarterbacks once we get to the draft.
So another unanimous pick on this list, not a surprise, is Brock Bowers. The latest with him, he's just got ankle surgery. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. And Chip, he really makes this Georgia offense click. And when you look at their upcoming schedule, you got Florida, Georgia, and Jacksonville, Ole Miss, Missouri, Tennessee. In your opinion, what is the impact with him out for some of those crucial games on their schedule?
It is a lot more put on the plate of Carson Beck. Brock Bowers has been tremendous this season. His 41 receptions leads all Georgia pass catchers. Second is 31, and then we do a big drop off to 18. He is carrying a huge part of that load. Also leads the team in receiving yards. Also leads the team in receiving touchdowns. And you go back to that Auburn game, he was the easy button when Georgia's offense was not able to get anything going. He goes out there with nearly 150 receiving yards, and 79 of it was after the catch. They move him around in the offense. He's a true Swiss Army knife. So you take him out of the equation. And Jacqueline, you mentioned the schedule is ramping up right now. We always knew the Bulldog schedule was backloaded, so they're going to need to be able to find some other options. But more importantly, back to my first point, this is on Carson Beck. He did not transfer because everyone within that Georgia program believed he was going to be next in line after Stetson Bennett. He has had the confidence of the coaching staff. He has had the confidence that this is something that he wanted to do. Most blue chip players, when they aren't starting, they hit the portal. He has stayed there. Now it is his moment. He's got to be able to raise the level of everyone else around him because Georgia is not an elite rushing team right now. And so without Brock Bowers, the true Swiss Army knife of Georgia's offense, Carson Beck's going to have to go get it done.
And Ryan, we talked about that injury, going to be out 4 to 6 weeks for some really crucial games on that schedule. We just popped it up there. But how does this impact Brock Bowers' draft stock if he's going to be missing those big games?
Jacqueline, he probably now will not get drafted. Jacqueline, I am just kidding. He will still be a top 10 pick. He is a fantastic football player, and this injury, which is certainly concerning for Georgia in the near term, will have zero impact on Brock Bowers in the long term. And here's how good Brock Bowers is, and Chip referred to him with the group of pass catchers. He is so much more than a tight end. He came into this season needing to improve as a blocker. He has done that in line, but you literally line him up anywhere, including the backfield, and he's a game changer. And he is better. He's going to be better coming out than Kyle Pitts was in terms of being the complete player. Kyle Pitts, better athlete, no doubt about it. But in terms of what Brock Bowers can bring immediately to an NFL team, there's no question that he is better than Kyle Pitts, T.J. Hawkinson, who was a top 10 pick, Noah Fant, his teammate, who was also a first-round pick in that draft class. And the team that gets Brock Bowers is going to be exceedingly happy because he is more than a tight end. He is a guy that changes the way your offense functions. And to Chip's point, we're going to see if Carson Beck can make this offense function without arguably their best player.
Ryan, when you joke like that, I was trying really hard to keep a straight face, and I'm like, is this dude serious right now? Okay, let's talk about the SEC. They dominate this list with 10 selections. Of course, you have Brock Bowers, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Luther Burden there. Chip, I'll start with you. When you look at this list of extreme talent, who are two that catch your eye and why?
We're going to start with Luther Burden at wide receiver. I mean, one of the big surprises is that we're not talking about Marvin Harrison Jr., who, while still might be one of those, elite players in the game of football throughout his career, this season, ain't nobody been better than Burden. He plays such a dynamic role in that Missouri offense. They can line him up in the slot. They can line him up outside. His yards after catch is absolutely electric. And so Luther Burden, one of the biggest signees for Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, has really answered the call. The other one for me is on the defensive side of the football, Malachi Starks. This Georgia team right now is better on the back end than it is up front. That's not really what we're used to, but in the absence of having a Jalen Carter or a Jordan Davis or some of those big defensive linemen, sometimes the dirty work has to be done on the backside, and that's where Malachi Starks has been absolutely tremendous. And so, Burden as that standout wide receiver and Starks now really taking over as one of the most important players of Georgia's defense, those are two that stand out to me.
I'm going to LSU and start with Malik Neighbors, the wide receiver there. A year ago, we were talking about Kayshon Boutte in terms of what that meant for the draft impact for him. And every time you watch Kayshon Boutte, Malik Neighbors would stick out because he was so good in fewer reps. This year, he is balling out. He is unstoppable. We heard Chip talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. perhaps not putting up the numbers we thought he might. He's still going to be wide receiver 1. But who is going to be wide receiver 2? We talked earlier about Rome Odunze out of Washington. Malik Neighbors has thrown his hat into the ring for what he's been able to do from the arm of Jaden Daniels, who has also made a name for himself this season. It's been a lot of fun to watch, and I love everything about Malik Neighbors' game. His ability to win down the field, his ability to stack cornerbacks on these go routes, his ability to high point the ball, all the things that will translate to the next level. I also want to talk about Jalen Simpson, the safety out of Auburn, and there are very few guys who have had a modicum of success, if you will, against Brock Bowers. Jalen Simpson is one of those players. Now, look, Auburn didn't win that football game, but it wasn't because of Jalen Simpson's ability when he was asked to cover Brock Bowers, had a PBU in the end zone that saved a touchdown there. He comes downhill with purpose. Now, look, he's not built like a tank truck, a Mack truck, excuse me, or a tank, but he plays like he weighs 230 pounds. I love the ferocity with which he comes downhill and run support. He's looking to hit guys running across the middle of these over routes, and he plays a pretty good center field as well. I'm happy to see him on this list, and I think he's going to have a bright NFL future once that time arrives as well.
Guys, let's talk about Notre Dame, one of 4 programs with multiple players selected. Of course, Joe Alt, he was in the preseason team as well, and then Audric Estime. Chip, what has impressed you most about these 2 guys from what you've seen so far this season?
Yeah, they take something that is the identity of Notre Dame football offensively, and they have excelled even beyond that stereotype and that expectation. You know, Audric Estime, are you just going to be the next big bruising running back? No, I'm going to be a bruising running back that can also punish you with explosive plays on the ground. And Alt is so big, so strong, and his ability to be a leader on the offensive line for that Fighting Irish group. And this is what Notre Dame does. I understand they've got Sam Hartman, and that has helped their passing game improve a lot from where they were, especially last season. But what Notre Dame football does is run the ball behind a big, experienced offensive line with a bruising running back. And even with that expectation, we have seen Audric Estime and Joe Alt exceed that so far this season.
Chip, I'll be honest with you, it's hard to take my eyes off of Sam Hartman and his handsomeness, but there are things like Estime and Joe Alt that help you do that, because you have to be pretty special to misdirect your attention. But you talked about it. Estime is an absolute bowling ball, and when you talk about what that translates to at the next level, is he Kyron Williams coming out of Notre Dame? Not quite. He's not Jerome Bettis, obviously. He feels like he's something in between. He will have certainly a place on an NFL roster. He'll probably be a day 3 pick if you're going to ask me right now as we get through this thing, but he's been a lot of fun to watch. Joe Alt, he will be a top 3 pick, maybe even, I don't think it goes above that, but we're talking top 5 consideration. He has gotten better from last year to this year. I loved his tape over the summer. He somehow improved on that. He is an absolute stone wall on the left side there for Sam Hartman in that offensive line. And again, immediately translatable to the next level, Jacqueline, both as a run blocker and in pass protection. Incredible athlete for that size, long wingspan, rarely gets beat. All the things you look for when you're looking to build around a franchise quarterback, and you have that pick at the top of the draft to get an offensive tackle.
All right, let's talk about UCLA's Latu. Not only is his name fun to say, Chip, but he is extremely fun to watch, extremely talented. What catches your eye about him?
Latu is really on the forefront of one of the biggest stories of the Pac-12, which is how good UCLA's defense has been and how much of an improvement it was from just being a leaking, sinking ship at times during the Chip Kelly era. And so we've known that the talent was there, and honestly, Latu is the kind of player with his physicality, with his athleticism, that I thought he might be, drafted without ever really being a star in college football. UCLA's defense has gotten better. Latu has been absolutely phenomenal, and so he's taken the improvements he had over last season. Now he's become one of the best players on the defensive side of the football in the entire sport. And so I'm honestly just happy for him, because so often we see these excellent defensive players who are going to be in the NFL one day, but they don't get a lot of attention because the defense they're on isn't great. That is not the case in Westwood. Latu leading a defensive renaissance for the Bruins.
I love it, Chip, and I love that the Pac-12 is somehow an amalgamation of the best teams in college football right now, and they will no longer exist in a few months. But you're exactly right about Latu. And by the way, if we're going to give some props to that UCLA defense, look at his inmate on the other side there. Gabriel Murphy is also balled out, but Latu is going to be a first-round pick. Chip talked about the strength with which he plays, the physicality. He is extremely twitched up for someone that size. He's extremely bendy, which is a word you hear when you talk about edge rushers, being able to turn the corner against a tackle and get to the quarterback. He does that consistently. And if you want to block Latu with a tight end, do so at your own peril, because that means you probably don't like your quarterback, because your quarterback's about to get smoked. But he does so many things well. It is going to translate, just as I said it did with Joe Alt on the other side. And to Chip's point, it's been a lot of fun to watch a really good football player on a really good defense get after it play after play.
Yeah, guys, and it's been interesting to see this midseason All-America team, probably the last that we'll see in this era of college football. We know there's a lot of changes coming. Chip Patterson, Ryan Wilson breaking down CBS Sports Midseason All-America team, and of course you can find that full list and article over on CBSSports.com. Thank you so much, guys, and for everything happening in the world of college football, make sure you check out the Cover 3 podcast. In the latest episode, The Crew, they're talking Georgia, Iowa, Texas A&M, Caleb Williams, rankings, so much more available anywhere you get your pods, or you can watch now by scanning that QR.